Hello, Herm Gailey here to do a follow-up on our previous video, which was entitled The Public Execution of Charlotte Dujardin. That's a video that dealt with some clear abuse of a horse immediately, or it came to light immediately before the Olympics. The Olympics have now just ended, and the video has been up for several weeks that I posted that included footage of that abuse. And I called for a lot of comments, and I got a lot of comments. And I hope that if you're following this at all on our channel, or even if you're new to it, watch that first video if you haven't, and by all means read the comments that came in. They were very thoughtful, very thought-provoking for the most part. Now, there were, predictably enough, a few within the lunatic fringe that we expect whenever we dip our toes into a controversial subject like what constitutes horse abuse. I want to comment on a few of the comments. First of all, I did a demonstration intended to show, and I do stand by this, that the abuse shown, Charlotte Dujardin repeatedly lashing a horse with a lunge whip with a rider on top, a young rider at that, apparently, as nearly as I can tell, to see if she could generate the horse moving forward more and picking up his feet in a more animated fashion. It did not go well from any perspective. However, it was my impression that the distress that was involved here was mental, was emotional, was psychological, and was indeed significant for the horse. Not downplaying that at all, but that any physical pain or harm was actually the tail, not the dog. So we did a small and apparently ill-advised demonstration by having my daughter, who is also the producer of these videos, use a lunge whip on me. And if you want to go back, you can watch that. The response was, well, in the video, I'm wearing jeans, so that's not apples to apples. And saying that I'm downplaying the abuse. So with all due respect to those commenters, on at least one of those points, I think they completely missed what I was trying to put across, and that is, this was about emotional distress. This was about psychological harm for the horse, not physical harm. One thing that came up again and again and again was, you're wearing jeans and the horse wasn't. Well, that's true, and not to defend the demonstration, which I think was probably an ill-advised, ill-considered sideshow, but just to defend the intention and the observation. This horse was wrapped from hoof head to hock with heavy polos, same way in the front legs from hoof head to knee. Virtually all of the whip strikes that I was able to observe in a rather poor quality video were low, landing in that protected area, which was, in fact, every bit as protected as my legs were in jeans. Some folks went so far as to say, you were hurting worse than you admitted. You have to admit it stung. I did say it stung. But as to something that would cause me to feel physically injured or cause me significant pain, even if I had not been wearing jeans, I don't think that's the case. One final thing on a lighter note, one lady wrote in and said, if you think it hurt with didn't hurt with jeans on, I'd like to see you do it bare naked. No, you wouldn't. Trust me. So I'm not going to abuse the listeners and the watchers by inflicting my gnarled old legs on them. But be that as it may, let's look at the substance of things here. Overall, everybody agreed that this was inappropriate. What was unfortunate, and this is another reason to watch or to look at the comments here, quite a number of people weighed in from other disciplines and said, as I did in the video, it doesn't end in dressage. And in fact, it would be totally unfair to say this was solely a dressage problem. People commented, as I did, on the Tennessee walking horses. People commented on a variety of the Western disciplines. Overall, I think there are a lot of comments on the video that clearly show that this is widespread. And as I said in the original video, we really need to work together within the horse world to remedy this, because folks will be coming for us who mean well, who are well organized, but who in the end will do a great deal of harm to our involvement with horses. So let's all try to work together. I hope all of the organizations realize that if they want to maintain their sport, they need to be more sensitive to the horse's well-being, which is just better horsemanship, better sportsmanship, and more decent in terms of human behavior than what's going on out there now. Another thing I wanted to touch on was how I think this came to happen. How someone of Charlotte Dujardin's excellent reputation and high profile exercised, at the very least, bad judgment, bad horsemanship, and inflicted a considerable amount of straight-up cruelty on this horse. And my thought is this, and this is pure speculation, but I'm going to exercise the right to speculate. In my life with horses, I have seen again and again people that were extraordinary riders. And Charlotte Dujardin, say what you will, I've had the opportunity to observe her ride dressage tests, observe her riding demonstrations, and she is an elegant, correct, balanced, extraordinary rider. Her timing is impeccable. Her balance is beyond compare. She is really in harmony with the horse when she's riding in competition. However, I've observed in other disciplines that sometimes you'll have somebody who in essence is just one hell of a jockey. But when those physical skills have to transfer to training skills, to straight up horsemanship skills, they fall short. And I think what we're seeing here is the same thing that results in abuse in lots of other circumstances. We see somebody who ran out of good options. There certainly were things that could have been done to move this horse up into the bridle, to get him a bit more active with his legs, if that was the goal, if indeed he had the background and the physical capacity to do that. When that didn't happen quickly, I think that Charlotte Dujardin, who was used to success, ran into the frustration barrier that tends to generate cruelty. And she said, well, I'm just going to apply more force and see how it goes. And I'll show him that he needs to do better. Well, the result is the type of ignorance and basic incompetence on a horsemanship level that is the basic fuel of virtually all cruelty. And I think what happened here is we had a very skilled rider who ran out of knowledge to convey training concepts to a horse and resorted to frustration, abuse, and bad decision making. Hopefully, that changes with this individual and becomes less prevalent across the board. What do we do with this? Well, clearly we've got a situation that involved senseless abuse. As I've said before, and a number of people commented, perhaps the most offensive thing here was how pointless this episode was. What was done generated absolutely nothing positive. It's not like the use of force yielded a positive result and maybe gave the abuser the opportunity to say, see, it worked. It didn't work. There was just multiple sustained attack on this horse's legs to force him to go forward, to force him to pick up, and he didn't even know what was going on. He responded every way he could think of. When he kicked out, he wasn't trying to kick Charlotte Dujardin. He wasn't trying to buck from ill behavior. I believe that he was just searching for what would get him some relief. For all he knew, as confused as he must have been, that was one possible answer. So there's no taking away from how foolish, ill-considered, and abusive this episode was. So where do the powers that be go in terms of punishment? What is an appropriate censure here? And I'm going to invite viewers to weigh in on that. And I anticipate that there are going to be people who want Charlotte Dujardin barred from ever touching a horse again, or from ever competing, or from Olympic competition. I predict that there is going to be a huge, literally public execution of her career-wise. And while I agree that there has to be a substantial penalty, I don't think public execution is in order here, because what happened, while it was disgraceful, was not a hanging offense. So what would I impose? Now, this is important that everyone know I have no precedent to consider. I don't know what has happened in any similar episodes that have come up, what kind of punishment was given by the FEI. But to me, after a fair examination of the facts, although I think the video's plain on its face and is the best evidence of what happened here, but after a fair investigation and the opportunity to defend herself and explain, if possible, what happened here, and to throw out any mitigating factors she might think exist, assuming that there are no big surprises in that process, I think there should be a 1-year active suspension from all FEI competition, followed by an additional 4-year period of probation, with the full sentence being activated, full suspension, if another episode either comes to light from the past or occurs going forward. I believe in second chances. I don't believe in third chances. So don't destroy this woman's career. Don't destroy her life. She's capable of doing better. This video was, depending on who you hear, 2.5 or 4 years ago. Charlotte has said 4 years. I'm going to assume that's true, give her the benefit of the doubt. While when this happened doesn't change the severity of what was done and the impropriety of what was done, I do think that the passage of time makes this episode in some ways less relevant, because I don't think any of us are the same person that we were 4 years ago. So if there were no additional episodes, if this was a one-off thing that never should have happened, but it was a single event 4 years ago, we have to build in some consideration that maybe Charlotte Dujardin is not the person that she was 4 years ago, and may be a better horseman than she was then. While we can't draw a firm conclusion, I think we can fairly consider that possibility in weighing out punishment. Now, in my structure that I proposed, a year of active suspension plus a 4-year suspension after that, this will cover the period of time of the 2028 Olympic Games. And if she steps off the straight and narrow, or is found to have stepped off the straight and narrow in the past, her suspension will automatically cover the next Olympic Games. So there's already been one Olympics taken away from her career. It was the right thing to do under the circumstances with this cloud hanging over her. The potential is absolutely there under my proposal to lose another Olympics. And depending on what comes to light, that whole situation generates punishment of its own. But for this event, a second event would trigger that lengthened suspension, and added to that would be whatever penalty was exacted based upon the second episode on its own merits. Might be worse, might be less. It would indeed be a second offense. So that's the way I see it. I would be intrigued to see from the viewers how they feel about this. What sort of punishment do you think is appropriate? Please be civil in your comments. I try to be civil in my responses. There are folks out there who, when they disagree with you, they would very much like to destroy you, including one woman who said, well, basically, you're not looking at this the right way, and I have to wonder what happens behind the doors of your own barn. Well, ironically, the video I made was behind the doors of my own barn. And if you look around, there were horses hanging their heads over the stall door, inches away from me as I spoke. If they looked abused, please let me know. I'm missing it. So let's all be polite. Let's try to move forward in a constructive way. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you.